All right. So, hello everyone. I'm Jamie Ehrenthal. I am so happy to have you here today. I named this workshop From Money Warrior to Wealthy. I said it wrong already. From Money Warrior to Wealthy Warrior, because I think that as women, we have an added level of stress when it comes to our money. And I just want to make it easier for everyone. I want to provide you with a process so that if you don't want to look at your money, you'll work yourself towards that a little bit more each day. And with our process, you're going to find out today exactly how much money you have. You're going to start to figure out how much money you're spending, and we're going to talk about making a plan with projections for the future. So please feel free. You're able to write your questions in the chat. They're just going to go directly to me, and I will check the questions periodically. But we are going to be working together. So I'm hoping, number one, you have at least a piece of paper and a pen or pencil, and you've got your phone nearby, not so you could scroll, but so that you can use the calculator function and that you'll be able to add and subtract. And that's really the extent of the math that we're going to do today. Okay, it's addition and subtraction. So here we go. So let me share my screen with you. Here we go. Hoping you can all hear me and see me. So our goal today from Money Warrior, we want to alleviate some of your stress. And we're going to do that by giving you 3 keys so that you can get control of your finances. And the results of looking at your money, making friends with your money, making plans for your money is what's going to give you peace and ease and comfort. And I don't know about you, but I believe that the reason that we do anything in this world is to get a certain feeling. So whether you are here today because you have been feeling terrible about your money and you just want to up level, you want to uplift, you want to feel better about your money, you're in the right place and we're going to help you. I think about all the things that we do in this world when we go to see a movie, when we go to get together with friends, when we buy new clothes, when we eat delicious food. Every single thing that we are doing is to try and increase our pleasure. It's to find joy. It's to make ourselves more comfortable. So this is a great, just the fact that you've shown up here today, I applaud you. I thank you for being here because I think you're going to get so much out of this and you're going to be ready to go. So what I'd really love to do, let's see, we're going to be talking about 3 things. I talk about it as a process. That step 1, we're going to look at our thoughts, our money mindset. We're going to assess where we are right now. And this is the meat of this presentation today, this workshop. This is where we're going to spend most of our time. And then finally, we're going to plan for our rich life. So there was one thing I wanted to do first. I just want us to ground. I just want to take a minute to do this, maybe 2 minutes. But if you're sitting in a place where you can sit back in your chair and get comfortable, make sure your feet are on the ground. And then go ahead and close your eyes. See if you can breathe in through your nose and out through your nose. And just pay attention to the breath. Notice when you're inhaling. Notice when you're exhaling. Plant your feet on the floor. Make sure you can feel your feet pressing into the ground. And if you're sitting, which I believe you are, imagine that you can feel your seat, your bottom, attached to that chair. If you're leaning back, feel your back supported by the chair. Breathing in through the nose and breathing out through the nose. Take a moment to soften the skin on your face. Allow your forehead to smooth. Allow your cheeks to soften. Maybe even separate your teeth a little so your jaw can relax. Breathing in and breathing out. And on the next exhalation, see if you can just drop your shoulders down 1/4 of an inch. Just soften through the neck, the shoulders. Let that softness move into your arms, down into your hands. Just soften. And allow that softness to move into your belly. Just let go. Whatever tension you're holding on to, whatever you're nervous about, just for this moment, focus on the breath, focus on softening and relaxing. And then bring your awareness to your hips and just see if you can relax your bottom. Just let go. Soften through the legs and all the way down to the feet. Notice your feet connected to the ground. And then if you like, I want to invite you to set an intention for this workshop today. What was it that made you come here today? What are your hopes and dreams that today will bring to you? And then lastly, give yourself a little bit of appreciation right now. Acknowledge yourself for showing up and know that you're going to get all the tools you need to find that peace and ease that you're looking for. Beautiful. So go ahead and you can float your eyes open. And as I mentioned, I've got an agenda for you today. 3 parts, but the bulk of it is going to be assessing and analyzing where you are today, how much money you have, and what you're spending it on. And just notice if that has those shoulders floating up again towards your ears, and see if you can relax back down. Let me introduce myself. For those of you who don't know me, Jamie Arenthal, and I am a certified financial planner and life coach. I'm also a divorce financial analyst, and I teach yoga on the side. And my mission is to help women figure out their money, to empower them to take control of their financial well-being so they can love their life, so they can improve their life, so they can live a rich life. The power of your money mindset. So this is really the first step of our journey here. And I believe that understanding your deep-seated beliefs, your self-concept about who you are with money, dictates the actions that you take. And those actions turn into the results that you have. So whatever results that you have right now, we can improve them only by changing and improving our self-concept and managing our thoughts. So I love to tell people the story of my first money memory. I must have been about 10 years old. My mom, it had to be said, was not loved by her mother-in-law. She probably was very different than they were. Her mother-in-law, my grandmother, and my aunt, they were very different than my mother. My mom was really a plain Jane, very tall, gawky, redhead, freckles, the whole thing. So my grandma Shirley, came to me around this 10th birthday and asked me what I wanted for my birthday. My mother very quickly dove in and whispered in my ear, "Don't ask for too much." So I was sort of thrown off, right? What did I want? Oh, it couldn't be too much. So I ended up asking my grandmother for a stuffed animal. My grandmother immediately turned to me and said, aren't you a little old for a stuffed animal? But that was it. That's what I asked for. So good to her word, Grandma Shirley gave me a stuffed animal. In fact, I just threw it out about a couple years ago when I sold my parents' house. 2 months later, my cousin Karen had a birthday. She got a birthstone ring. I mean, my head almost blew off. I was so jealous. I was so upset that I went to my grandmother, and I said, Why did she get a ring? And I only got a stuffed animal. And my grandma Shirley, now you could say she was just being mean, or you could say she was trying to teach me a lesson. Her answer was, you asked for the stuffed animal. You don't get if you don't ask. It was a big lesson for me. And I don't know how many of you suffer from that, kind of being the people pleaser. And just remember, I don't call it a victim, but I was sensitive to my mother's self-limiting beliefs and her beliefs about what she needed to do with her mother-in-law and how she wanted me to behave in that way. So that's definitely a question. One of the first things that I do ask my clients when we start to work together is, what is your earliest money memory? And then we go further and, what do you think about yourself with money? Do you think you're good with money? What's your relationship with money? And I'm sure all of you could journal on this, and you're going to get this slide deck after, and I will include some questions in here for you to follow up on and to journal on. I like this quote: a wealthy woman has a loving relationship with her money. So here's the meat of it. This is what we're going to work on today. We're going to assess where you are now. This is the second step in the process. We're going to explore how much money you have and how much money you spend. The way we're going to do it is by creating financial statements. So some of you are business women. You create financial statements or profit and loss statements for your business. We're going to be doing this on a personal level. And we do it because we want to get an overview of your financial health. We want to track your income and expenses, and this will help you make informed decisions about your finances. And this is Ramit Sethi from his How to Get Rich Netflix docuseries. He says, you can't get a rich life without taking control of your money. And I'm all about all of us having a rich life. A rich life isn't specifically about how much money you have in the bank, right? A rich life is how you live day to day, how you are able to interact with your partner, how you can talk about money, how you feel about money when you talk to your parents or your family, how you show up when you're with your friends, and knowing that everybody has a different amount of money, right? So here we go. So a net worth statement, the difference between net worth statement and cash flow statement, the biggest difference is the net worth is just a snapshot. It's a point in time of how much money you have, how much money you owe, and what's left, which is called your net worth. Another name for this is a balance sheet. We look at your assets and liabilities, and I'll go over that and make sure everybody knows what I'm talking about. And I look at this as it's like getting on a scale. And we all know that we can have a different reaction of any number that shows up on the scale. So the same thing can happen here, but I would encourage you to think of this number as being neutral. It's just a starting point. It's like when you want to go somewhere and you put a destination in the GPS, you have to know where you're starting from, or else the GPS doesn't know how to give you directions. The other statement that we're going to start working on, and this could take a while when I work with clients, it's usually over an hour just for the cash flow statement. This is over a period of time, and it tracks your income and expenses, and it helps you to understand your financial situation, also called a budget, which I don't love. I like the name spending plan, or you call it for business, it's a profit and loss statement. And you can analyze what you're spending money on and also analyze how much money is coming in so you can make better decisions, whether it's changing your job, whether it's saving more money, whether it's cutting out spending, or just the way that you're looking at your spending. For example, we look at your values, right? And if one of your values is to spend time with family, you may need to save more money to create a travel budget, right? And that would be spending and saving in alignment with your values. This is the financial checklist, and I sent this to all of you. It was an attachment, a worksheet attached to a couple of the reminders about today's workshop. And some of you, when I first started this business about a year and a half ago, this was one of the first lead magnets or freebies that I gave out. And I'm happy if you want to share this with other people, but the idea is just to get you thinking about, where is all of this information? Where is it held? So what we're talking about, and hopefully you have it near you. And if you don't, it's okay. It's all right to guesstimate, just for the purposes, like as we get started, you can always go back and refine this later. So the first thing is you want your bank statements, right? You're going to have most likely a checking account. Some people have more than one checking account. When we get into the weeds on this, we separate out your business checking account, your business savings, your business loans from your personal. So just for simplicity, today we're really just talking about personal, but I'm happy to go back with you and look at the business. So on the personal side, you may have more than one checking account. You may have one that's joint with a partner and one that's just yours alone. You might have an online savings account. You may have money market funds. You may have a CD, because the rates have recently gone up. So maybe that's something that you wanted to do with a chunk of money. And these monies that are in these bank accounts, this is considered your current assets. This is money that's readily available. And I would say to you, if you've got money under the mattress, that would go in here as well. All right. Any cash on hands, anything like that. And one of the questions that's come up for me is, what if someone owes me money? That doesn't go here. That goes into your other assets. That's a receivable, right? So you can't count that as a current asset right now, unless like literally you have their check in hand and you just have to deposit it in the bank. The second category of assets, and these are called assets. So an asset is anything that adds value, that has value. Investments, these are non-current assets. So in other words, if you needed to get into your investment account, you'd have to sell during open stock market hours. Then you have to wait 2 days usually for it to settle. And then you'd have to make arrangements to move the money out of there. So this is not cash on hand. This is a non-current investment. And this could be stocks, bonds, mutual funds. Also take a look at 529 college savings. The truth is, like when you create one of these accounts for somebody else, for your child or a niece or nephew, as long as you are still managing it, you actually have control over where that money goes. And in an emergency, you could actually take money out of there. I think there's like a 10% penalty or something like that. But if you needed to, it's like give backs, right? You can take it back. Trusts also can be set up that you, as the person, the grantor, the person who set up the trust, you may be able to go in there and take out money if it's revocable, if it's like one of those trusts. Also, any real estate you own, and that could be your home, that could be an investment property, anything, maybe you rent out a piece of property, maybe you do Airbnb, so that would go here. And then the last category is your stuff, right? So like I would look at I can't sell my car. It's a leased vehicle. So it has zero value. If anything, it's a liability because we have to pay on it. But my jewelry certainly is up for grabs, right? If it came to that, I have some artwork that I could sell. And recently I just did consignment for a bunch of clothes that my daughter and I were trying to get out of this apartment that we live in. So all of these assets have a value that you could convert into money if need be. And then lastly, we have your retirement assets. So some of you work for a corporation. That could be, maybe they have a 401k or a 403b. Plus, you may have your own retirement account, a traditional or a Roth IRA. Some of you have been military and you're going to have a pension. And although we can't maybe put a value on it, I know if you were going through divorce and your spouse had a military pension or another pension coming, you would want to have somebody come in, a specialist, to evaluate, to put a value on that pension or the military benefits, because you are entitled to that in a divorce, right? Those are still considered marital assets. I mean, sometimes the length of time that they were in the military before you got married is going to affect how much you might have a right to. So the longer, like for example, if somebody, your spouse started a job, like right after you got married, you're entitled to 100% of that as part of your marital asset split, right? When you split the money. And then lastly, employee benefits. So employee, the ESOPs are stock. It's a stock ownership plan. Maybe you or your spouse or ex-spouse has those and they don't have value today. Like you can't cash it in today. You know, like some of the other things. I know you can get into an IRA, but there is a penalty. But these things like ESOPs, you cannot realize the value today, but they're still there and they belong on your assets, like on your net flow statement. And then the last, so that those are your assets. And I'm just going to flip over here. And this is what the balance sheet looks like. When I work with clients, this is what we put together. This is an Excel spreadsheet and you can download. I mean, you can find a form like this, but if you want to work with me, we use this, we do this, and we can add or subtract lines. So all the things that we've talked about so far are here. I think you could see my cursor, the current assets, the non-current assets, and now we're going to talk about liabilities. So liabilities are anything that is a negative, right? Anything where you owe money. So credit cards, mortgages, home equity line, business loans, student loans should be on here, and money and promissory notes, like where you may have borrowed money from somebody and you're going to have to pay them back. And debt, I want to just say this out loud. Debt is not bad. Debt is not the enemy. There are some financial planners and advisors out there who do not recommend that you use debt, but I think there's a lot of really good debt, like your student loans, like that's amazing debt. That was an investment that you made in your education. I'm just going to stop this share for a moment. So I just want to see if there's any questions. I don't see any questions, but there is good debt. That mortgage that you put on your house, that's good debt. It's probably at a very low interest rate and it's great. It's a great way to leverage your money and your assets. And what would I consider bad debt? I'll share my screen again. I don't see any questions. So bad debt, in my mind, it's credit card debt that you're not paying off on a regular basis. It's where credit card debt, they're going to charge you in excess of 20% interest. And essentially, they're charging you interest on your interest on your interest. So it's just a vicious cycle with credit card debt. And one of the things that I love to do with clients, I've done it successfully many times, is I help you figure out how to pay off the bad debt if you want to think that there is some bad debt. And we could talk about, if you have any questions, I can always give you some ideas. Of course, without knowing the full picture, it's kind of difficult. So what I'd love you to do right now, I want to just take a few minutes. We're kind of at the halfway point in the presentation in the workshop. So please write down, you can either screenshot this or you can just write this down on a piece of paper. I want you to put the balance, and I have a date of 12/31/22, but you can use yesterday's date, or if you pull up the number, you know, it's June 1st, we're not quite at the halfway point, but go for it. Write down the amount in your checking account, please. Oh, and notice the second thing that I have here is an emergency fund. So we're going to talk more about that when we talk about the cash flow. because an emergency fund relates to how much money you need to spend every month. But for now, any savings accounts that you have, maybe you use an envelope method, maybe you have this amount earmarked for a vacation, or you have this amount earmarked for a wedding, or maybe an amount that you're trying to save for either a car, whatever it is, separate those, right? Make that really clear to yourself so you can see what's in each of those envelopes. I know people who go so far as to like literally set up separate savings accounts for everything they need. I personally don't do it that way, but I do use a spreadsheet. So I know how much money is there for me to spend and how much of it is necessary to be saved. So go ahead. I hope you're through that now. Add that up. You don't have to tell anybody. Just add that up. And then let's talk about non-current assets. Do you have a brokerage account? Do you have, is there like a trust that you're the beneficiary of that you can list there? Do you have retirement accounts? Are you in a 401k or 403b? And for those of you who have your own business, if you are making like a certain level of money, if you're in the six figures, you should be looking at what's called a SEP IRA. And I forget, it's like simple employee plan, something like that is what SEP stands for. And the benefit of a SEP, for those of you who know, when you contribute to your IRA, we're limited. I think it's 6,500 now. And if you're over 50, you get $1,000 bonus that you're allowed to contribute. A SEP IRA, you could contribute as much as like 50 something thousand dollars, right? It's amazing. So these are the benefit of contributing to an IRA. If it's traditional, right, or a SEP IRA, it takes, or a regular 401k, it takes the money out of your current assets. It takes it out of your hands and it puts it aside for your retirement. And we can also talk about how much do you need for retirement. We're going to talk about that as well if we have time. And then on this list of non-current, you're including your house. And what I would say, I would put, if you know the current value, like if you go to Zillow or something, just you could put in that value, or if you've recently had an appraisal, if you don't know any of that number, just put what you paid for it. The same thing would go for the car or your personal effects. Like if you knew how much, your jewelry costs, just put it there. It's okay. We're just trying to get an idea. And then I'd like you to add those up and then add your current assets and your non-current assets. And that's going to be all of your assets. And if you think of something later, you can always add it in. Like, oh, that piece of jewelry that your mother was planning on giving to you. I don't know. I might count that. I'm wearing my mom's ring right now. So I count that as mine. Okay, sorry, let's talk about liabilities. So I don't know how many credit cards you have, but I'd want you to list them down and then put whatever the current balance is. And leave that open, like whatever it is, because I'd love to know later in a minute what the payments are, what the minimum payment is, and what the interest rate is. But for now, just put the outstanding. If you have any personal loans, so sometimes, and you may know someone who's done this, they've been able to recast their credit card debt and get a personal loan, like from a place like Lemon Tree or something like that. And the interest rates are significantly lower. Like I've heard of someone, it was like in the 6 to 8% range. So they took 21% interest credit cards and they were able to convert that. But of course, that's only great if then you're going to pay off that personal loan. Put your student loans in. I know you probably haven't had to pay them through the pandemic, but I think now you have to again. Your car loan, your mortgage, and if you have a line of credit on your house. And I love, if you own your own home, the idea of having a line of credit on it. It's amazing. Like as long as you're not borrowing too much, right? Your line of credit could be a great place to pay off your credit cards from. Okay, more on that later. So jot everything down, get in as much as you have right now, and then add up your total liabilities. And then when you're done with that, go ahead and subtract liabilities from your assets. And that is your net worth. And I want to be clear, that's not your personal worth. Let me check. I see there's something in the chat. How much should my emergency fund be? We're going to get to that. Don't worry. We're going to get there. So we don't know until we figure out how much you're spending. Let's move over. So this is a personal budget. I just downloaded this, I think, from Excel. And this isn't actually the exact one that I use. I'm happy to send this to you. It's not the exact one that I use with my clients. I use one that allows me to have the business cash flow and the personal cash flow all in one spreadsheet so we can link them together. But I did want you to see that. And by the way, I also have a sheet that's from the Financial Planners Organization to help you do all your debt, figure out how much debt you have and what the payments are. And I'm absolutely happy to share that with you as well. I have it at the end of this presentation, so I can always show it to you then if anyone's asking. Okay, so here's what we just did. How much money do you have? So that was that net worth is a number. And one of the things that I think you find out, don't freak out if it's negative, because there is time. You're doing exactly what you need to do. You're getting on the scale. And if it's positive, congratulations. This is great. This is a great start. And we're going to come up with, I'm going to explain to you, I have some information about how to judge whether or not you have saved enough and how much more you need to save to retire, let's say. All right. So the second category, and this is really where I think women get the short end of the stick. We get punished for being female. You've heard of the pink tax. So a razor that a man can buy is less expensive than that same exact razor that's put into a pink package. Venus, anyone? And we are upcharged, right? Plus, how many men do you know who spend money on cosmetics? Very few, right? More and more, maybe. But most women that I know spend a lot of money on cosmetics, on their lotions, on their, potions, on all the things they use. Guess what? Hair. How much does if you have a friend who's a guy, how much does he spend on getting his hair cut, colored, straightened, blown out for an event? So, right? It's negligible compared to what many of us spend. So I don't want you to be thinking like don't buy the latte, right? That was a big joke, like that women are broke because they're spending money on frivolous things like a Starbucks coffee. No, that is not the case. Women have 3 strikes against them. The first thing is that women, and this is white women, make 85 cents on the dollar to what men make. Women of color make even less. Okay, Latinx and Black women and Indigenous people, forget about it. So we're making less than men. The second thing is we take less risk than men. It's not that we're more risk averse. It's just that we may not be as fluent in the stock market. Guys go out on the golf course, they talk about their investments. They talk about what's hot in the market. In fact, they probably love researching and studying all of the financial intricacies of all the companies out there that issue public debt, like the way they maybe focus on golf or baseball. I just have to say, I think women are really too busy. Like they're busy living their life, maybe raising children, or whatever it is that they're doing. Women may not be as interested in getting into the weeds. And what that does is it means we don't invest our savings in income producing assets the way men do. So when push comes to shove, even if men and women were making the exact amount of money, the men are investing more money. So at the end of the day, their nut when they go to retire is larger than what most women have to retire on. Okay. So that's a second reason. And the third reason that we're screwed or maybe blessed is that we outlive men. Now, some of the statistics that I heard said it was like 7 years, which doesn't sound like a lot. But I can tell you, my mom's in her 90s right now. My dad passed in his 80s. And when I go to the home where she lives, she's in one of these independent living facilities. It's all women there. There's maybe like 3 men for every 50 women. Just the odds are we, even if, we get married and we're happy, whatever, we eat well and we do all this stuff, we are still going to outlive the men in our lives. So we need more money to support ourselves. So let's talk about the income statement right now. And this is, again, called an income statement or cash flow statement. And we get it really from the budget. So what I'd like you to do right now is jot down on that paper all of your income. And I would do it on a 1-year basis. And I did create, let me just stop share for a moment. I wonder how sloppy it's going to be when I try and get back into this. Okay. Are we? I want to share my screen again. I did practice this at a time. Now, let's see. Okay, here we go. So this is the spending plan or cash flow statement that I use. And while we're in here, I can show you. Let's start here. So all of your income sources, if you can please jot them down. And now you can do this either gross, that means before you pay taxes, or you can do it net. If you do it gross, then down here, we're going to have to take out the taxes. So however you either pay yourself or get paid, it's up to you how you want to list this. And then you can add them up. And this is, I'm not going to fill this in now, but this would be, let's say I'm from my coaching business, and let's be aspirational. Here we go. So that's showing my income is 200,000. So you get to write down whatever it is that you want to write down. And then the next thing I'd like you to consider are your expenses. So your expenses, as I mentioned to you earlier, there you can download any kind of budgeting software, and this is what it's going to be asking you to do. So I just want you to think about your biggest expenses right now. So most people's biggest expense is going to be rent or mortgage payment, right? And this is considered a fixed expense. And I would like you to also think about your like what you're spending on groceries, like your food, and maybe your utilities. So try and get down some of the biggest expenses. And someone asked, how do we know, if we're spending in the right amount? And there is something called, let me just stop this share. There's something called the 50, 30, 20 rule. So 50% of your income, and that's really after tax income, 50% is what you should be, pardon me, you should be spending on your fixed expenses, like your mortgage or rent, on your utilities, on your maybe your car payments, all the things that you don't have that much say about them once you've entered into that situation. So like we signed a lease here, and that's how it goes. It's like I'm not negotiating that. It is not variable. However, my groceries and certainly dining out is a little variable, right? It's negotiable. So I would want you to kind of separate that. That doesn't go in the 50%. So the 50% is the stuff that's that's what you need to have. And the question about how much my emergency fund should be, you could be looking at this number, and at a minimum, we want to have 3 months worth of these fixed expenses put aside. And I would say, we had the pandemic. it should be at least 6 months, and you get bonus points if you can get it to at least a year of those expenses. And this is an emergency fund. This is not invested in the stock market. This is money that's readily available if, like, your car breaks down, if you have a flood in your house, if, I don't know, God forbid you have to fly somewhere for a funeral and you really do need that money. So the 30%, right? 50% is for your fixed expenses. Let's jump to the 20%. 20% is what we're being advised to save. So if you are putting 10% of your income into your company's 401k, you've got 10% covered. Now I need you to save the other 10%. And so if you're not saving that much, that's okay. Start with something. Start with an automatic deduction from your account. And whether that's, if you're employed and you're getting a paycheck, they'll deduct it for you to go into the 401k. And you could also direct funds. So you could have them deposit 5% of your paycheck into your savings account and then the rest into your checking account. So just be aware of that. Like, this is a way that you take it out of your hands. You take it out of your head, if anything, and then you know that you have that. So let me go back to our, here we go. I'm going to share my screen again. Screen. Okay. There we go. So this just what I would recommend, just start small. And I think, if you listen to Ramit Sethi, he talks about a conscious spending plan. So what I like to do, we're already, 5 months in. I would have you go through and fill out these columns, not exactly this, but in my cash flow spreadsheet, I'd have us go through and look at what you have already spent. And then I would have you project what you're going to spend for the rest of the year. And that way you'll have some wiggle room. Like, if you notice you're spending way too much on your subscriptions, on clothing, on something else, you have a chance ahead of time to change that, right? Conscious spending plan. Okay, so you've now come up with your income and you've gotten many of your expenses. I'd like you to subtract your expenses from your income, and that's going to give you what's left. That's your cash flow, right? That's what's left over. And what could we do with that money? Well, you could certainly pay down debt. You could save money, whether it's for your retirement or whether it's for a trip that you were looking forward to. But knowing how much money is left over at the end of the day is crucial for you to be able to make good decisions. My clients and I have a program called the Money Confidence Program, and my clients and I, we spend a full session talking about their values. What is it that is the most important thing to them in life? And, the obvious things are your health, your family, your, maybe somebody there. What's really valuable to them is that they want to retire at a young age. That's really important for them. Maybe they saw a parent or relative work themselves to the bones, and then the day after they retired, they dropped out of a heart attack. So whatever it is, whatever you is important to you, that's something that I am very interested in. Right? I'm going to be asking, what are your goals? What is your version of a rich life? So that's what the next step in our program is. I know we're already about 45 minutes in, so I just want to stop for a minute. Are there any questions? You could type in any questions that you have. One of the questions that comes up, what do I do if I have a lot of credit card debt? And one of the clients I worked with had money sitting in a savings account, but she didn't want to touch it So instead, she was paying 20 something percent on her credit card. And I got her to fix that because your net worth is the same. Like if you take $20,000 out of your savings account and you use it, and I'm not talking about your emergency savings, but if you have another savings account and you use it to pay down $20,000 in credit card debt, you're actually going to, your net worth will not change. It'll be even. It's like a zero sum game. I see there's a question here, but it will reduce your expenses because your credit card payments are going to be less. Can you see I wonder if you see this. I love the idea of a conscious spending plan. Yes. Whoops. I went the wrong way. Okay. So the next thing I want us to do is just take a minute. I like to think of this as a calm sandwich. So we started off by grounding. We did a breathing exercise and we really appreciated ourselves for even asking the question today. So I'd like you, if you're able to, if you're not driving, sit back in your seat, ground your feet to the floor, get comfortable and close your eyes. Again, focus first on your breathing. Notice the breath as you inhale, as you exhale. Use the next few exhalations to relax, to soften, to find a little ease, because this was a lot. We just did a lot. And now I'd love you to picture yourself at peace with your money. Imagine what it would be like to look at this piece of paper in a month from now or in a year from now, when you've just calculated how much money you have and how much money you're spending. And what if you could feel great? You could feel confident that you were making really good choices, really good spending decisions. Picture yourself confident, competent, clear. Imagine yourself feeling secure, knowing that you have enough. And the bottom line, how do you want to feel? When you're ready, you can float your eyes open. When you are in control of your money, you can achieve your dreams. So many of us are afraid to dream. Our self-concept is, oh, I'm not a person who, ... fill in the blank. But having money is not just so that you can have the money, so you can like count it, touch it, be Scrooge with it. That's not it. The reason I want you to have money is so you can live an abundant life, so that you can expand, that you can better yourself, that you can make the world a better place because you have control of your money. So this is really the end of the workshop. And unless you have questions, I have some other information and questions that I'm happy to share with you. If you are just still confused about this and you feel like you could really use a little bit of hand holding, give me a call. Let's do a one-on-one session. I call it an intro session, but it's really a consult and I can tell you more about my program, but I'm happy to do that with you for free, one-on-one. I'll be sending out an email after this, which will have my intro session URL for you to sign up for something with me. And I highly recommend share this information with your girlfriends. Like the next time you go out and have a drink, talk about money, bring it up, see what happens, because women who talk about money empower each other to have more money, to spend money wisely, to save enough for your retirement. So I'm so happy to be here with you. I have a question that people have asked me, and it was about how do I know if I have enough money for retirement? Right. So we already talked about the savings rule, the 50, 30, 20. Did I say the 30% was for all the other stuff that you want to spend it on, like travel, clothing? So it's 50, 30, 20. 50 is on fixed, 30 is on your variable on stuff you want, and the 20% is for your savings. And that's aspirational. You're aiming toward that. And then the second thing, how much should my emergency fund be? Start off, if you really have nothing saved, start off with $1,000 and then work your way to 3 months of your expenses, 6 months, and then a full year of your expenses. And then the last thing, how much do I need to retire? And there's this 25 times rule. And this has to do with your expenses. So once you know how much you are spending now, let's just say you are living on $80,000 a year. But let's make it even. Let's make it you are spending $100,000 a year on your lifestyle, including your travel. In the old days, they used to say, assume that in retirement, you're going to be spending less than you're spending now, 70%. I disagree. I think all of us have had a taste of the good life, and that if we can, we want to maintain the lifestyle that we're living now and even like improve it, right? Like, who's to say we're not going to be spending more money when we're in retirement, visiting all of our grandchildren if we have them, or just traveling ourselves, or investing in artwork or whatever, right? You want to be doing. So, just to keep things real, take the so-called 100,000 that you're spending now, multiply that by 25. So that's 2.5 million. Now, that's not exactly what you need to retire, because I'm assuming that most of you will be collecting Social Security. So Social Security, you could be collecting it on your own income record, right? Or you could be collecting it on a spouse's record. And when you're divorced, you can, as long as you don't remarry, you can collect half of your ex's Social Security payment. So let's say your Social Security was going to be about $1,500 a month, and theirs is going to be like $4,000 a month. You could get their $2,000 a month. So more about that later. But what you can do for this calculation, if you've already gone to My Social Security and you know that you're going to be getting, let's say, $60,000 a year in Social Security, you can subtract that from the 100,000. So all you need to solve for is the 40,000, right? If you want to spend 100 and you know you're going to get 60 from Social Security, all you need to solve for is the 40,000. So you would take that 40,000 and you would multiply that by 25, and that's $1 million. So big difference between the 2.5 million nut and the $1 million nut. And if you're wondering, how am I going to get to that? There was also something out there. I forget if it was T. Rowe Price or Fidelity, but they said, how do I know if I've saved enough? Now, they base this on your salary. So this is an assumption that you're spending what you're earning, that you're living within your means. Also, if you are not making money, like either you're unemployed or you're collecting alimony or something like that, or you're the beneficiary of a trust, you would use that number for the salary, because that is your salary, right? Now, one of my clients was a 75-year-old woman who she got $20,000 a month allowance. I'm all for it. Give me an allowance. 120,000. And I worked with her to really think of that as that's her salary. That is her salary for raising 3 kids and handling 10 grandchildren and booking the family's vacations and social life, et cetera. So with this, T. Rowe Price, I believe it was, said by age 50, you would be considered on track if you have 3 to 6 times your pre-retirement gross income saved. So if you make 100,000 a year, by 50, you should have in savings, and that can include retirement, $300,000 to $600,000. By age 60, you should have 6 to 11 times your salary saved. So I'm 60. So let's say I'm making 100,000, 10 times that would be $1 million saved. Okay, so just something to think about. But again, this makes the assumption that we're spending within our salary, right? That we're spending within our means. So I hope I have, shared with you, one, everything that you're interested in, that this is easy and digestible and something that you really get that you can do now, whether it's by simply picking up a book on finances or working with somebody. A certified financial planner is your best bet. If anyone is contemplating divorce, I am a certified divorce financial analyst. The calculations end up being a little different, a little more charged because of the divorce that's in process or maybe just completed, but I'm happy to sit down with you and talk about that. I also work with widows, people who have, maybe not previously been in charge of handling their money and suddenly they need to. And lastly, I work with people who've inherited like a windfall. Thank you, Natalie, appreciate it. So I want to thank you for being here and I want to respect your time and wish you all a great day. Please feel free to reach out. Let me know if you have any questions, any concerns. And of course, if you know anyone that you think could benefit from meeting me and speaking with me, I am there for it. I'd love to meet them. So feel free to share this information. I'll be sending you a replay and always reach out to me if you have any questions. Thanks so much, and I hope you all have a great day.